All right, so I'm going to start building something very simple. I'm just going to build a crate. Okay, this is something typically you would see, again, inside of a gaming engine. They have crates all over the place. You blow them up, whatever. It can help, too, to have some sort of idea for scale. So you look at Unreal Engine scale units. So in Unreal, 1 unit equals 1 centimeter, but is it useful? You can read that whole thing, okay? So this is 1 centimeter inside of Unreal. So what that means is if I'm building a crate, if I build it 5 centimeters, Unreal tries to mimic the real world, so guess how big that crate's going to be? 5 centimeters, right? So thinking about how big this would be in the real world, if you need to grab a ruler just to figure stuff out, grab a ruler to figure it out. So if I went with a 24-inch crate, that would probably be a decent size, or actually probably like an 18-inch crate might work better. So I would then go to Google and I would type in 18 inches to centimeters, and that's 45 centimeters long. Okay, so I'm going to go here just so you can see this again, just to kind of review this, because we kind of talked about it on the last assignment. Each one of these units, if I go to my scale and I start typing in numbers here, so if I type in 45 in my X, okay, that should be 45 centimeters long. I can verify that by going to my measure tool, distance tool, and just clicking roughly by one point and then roughly by the other point. It doesn't have to be exactly 45 point whatever that was, 72. Close enough is good enough in this case, okay? Now, let's say that I grabbed a cube, and let's say that I went to its points, and I did that. Oops, I have reflection on. Turn that off. I did this, and I pull it that far over. I grab this, and I pull it that far over. Okay. So if you look now at my scale number, do you see how it still says 1, right? So when you grab something and you're moving just the points around, that's not adjusting the actual units of it. It's changing the size, obviously. But I don't have a reference, like actually something physical I can look at to see this is how big my item is, okay? So just be aware of that. If you start moving faces, moving edges, moving vertices, that's not going to update how many actual units it is. It's much easier if you grab the item and you scale it here to say that's 45 centimeters big, okay? And because this is a crate, I'm going to go 45 by 45 by 45. All right, so there is my cube. Now to give this more shape, okay, and we've kind of talked about this, from pretty much day 2. We could do a crate that looks exactly like this. Like if you remember, I don't know if you guys ever played Doom or what was the other one, Quake, right? So their stuff was super duper low res. So basically, that's the kind of crate you would get in something like that. Or if you played Minecraft, that's what you would get for one of those Minecraft blocks. The higher settings that we can have now allow us to do other stuff. So I'm going to grab all the faces and extrude it. I'm going to take the thickness down to, let's say 5. You'll notice that, I didn't want the thickness, sorry. I want offset, 5. There we go. It doesn't move because keep faces together is on. So as I start extruding this, all the faces are trying to move together, but they can't because they're all attached. So that's where I would say keep faces together off. And now it allows those faces to then scale inward. Okay, like this. It wasn't allowing it to do that before. Obviously that will not work if you try to do that. All right, so that scales it in. And then I can extrude it again and then push it in. Okay. So now we have our super low res crate. We have a medium res crate. And then if I go here and I start grabbing all of these, my display is horribly blurred. And then I added, let's say, a bevel to this. And we'll do 2 segments. There we go. And now we have a higher res crate. Okay. So depending on what kind of game I'm in, I may have one crate versus the next one versus the next one. Okay. So this is the time to kind of play around with that and see. You're not going to, unless you go crazy with your divisions, you're not going to hit the limit for Unreal. Okay. You're not going to have like 7 billion divisions. The idea is kind of balancing it out. So in one scene, let's say I had 1,000 crates, I could duplicate this guy 1,000 times and it's not going to be a huge deal. But if I go to this one and I start duplicating it, that's going to be a big deal. Because that's 1,000 times however many triangles I have here. That's a lot of divisions in that one area. Okay? So just keep that stuff in mind. Also remember that in Substance, we can use a lower res model and project a higher res model on top of it. Right? Remember that from like the second assignment or first assignment? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all three of these, and then we'll add some other stuff to what we bring in. All right. So I'm just going to delete my history on these. I'm going to lay out my UVs. UV editor. If you're not aware of this, maybe you're used to, Cinema or whatever, you can change your UV editing mode right here. And what it does is it brings up your 3D, your UV, and then tools right there. So if you want to work in this kind of workflow, feel free to. I'm going to automatic map this. Again, it's going to break everything. I have too many divisions there. Let me go back to that. Let me set this to 6. That's good. And then project. Okay. So if I look at my checker map, there it is. Now, does anyone remember the specific items that we want to make sure that our textures have as far as the squares go? There's a few things we always look for.
Any deformities or stretching.
Right, any deformities or stretching. So what do we want to have? Perfectly square shapes. Okay? So every single square on this thing should actually be a square. There shouldn't be any that look crazy. If I turn off my display here and I just grab this and do that, you can see that these ones down here are definitely not squares. They're actually like stretched out weird pieces, and if I go like that, it makes it even worse. Okay, so that's definitely something we want. What else do we want? All right, maybe if I do that. Is anything wrong with this UV layout? Make sure all the squares are the same sizes. Right. So those are typically the two things we need to worry about. They're all the same size, and they're all squares. Apart from that, we can start to play with different areas of things. Now, going into Unreal, we can have textures that go into this spot, that go into this spot, that go into that spot. We can do that. However, it doesn't work the same way that Maya's does. Okay? Meaning that I can't have one material that houses all these different textures. For each item, I'd have to have a different material. Okay, for each one of these squares would be a different material here, a different material there, a different material there. It still works, but we'd have a different material. Okay, so if we are going into a gaming engine, we want to make sure that our model is as optimized as we can make it, and also our texture is as optimized as we can make it. If I had 12 crates, I can use the same texture on each one of those. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, if I had 12 crates and I bunched all their textures into one spot and I tried to do that, I'd probably like really down res all my textures. It would probably look pretty horrible. Okay, so just be aware that we can do that kind of stuff. I always want to make sure that my maps are optimized. So in here, I'm going to grab all of these things like this. And what I'm doing is just grabbing those top points and then moving and sewing. And the reason I'm doing that is so that they're all together. Because hopefully it'll make my UVs a little bit nicer. There we go. There we go. And I still have one more piece. I'll just grab that piece and put it there. Oops, and these pieces here. Cool. All right, so now I can grab, oops, I forgot about all these. Hold on. So, oops. All right, so that one crossed over. You can see how there's an X here. So I'm going to hit undo because I don't like how it laid up that one out. And I'm just going to do these ones one at a time. There we go. Okay, so now I can grab everything. Now I can go to unfold. Okay, it makes it kind of weird there. That's fine. I'm going to go to orient. Whoops. I'm just going to rotate this one because he's stupid. rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Perfect. Okay. And so now I can grab all of these and then do a layout. And I'm going to do the same exact setup, 4096, preserve 3D ratios, translate 55 4096. Whenever you're making a texture, you may not know if you're going to go for a game or you may not know if you're going to go for product rendering. It's always best to go with the highest res texture, and then for the game, you can always scale it down and make it smaller. Okay? All right, so there's my box with its UVs. So I'm going to do the same thing to this box. Now this one has no bevels on it, so I should end up with less pieces. Automatic. Boom. Okay. I still have all of these. These are all those edges that are on the inside, so I'm still going to grab all these and still do some move and sews. Now here's a quick way that I could do this. If I go like that. Oops. And then I deselect all of those pieces like this. So I'm just holding control to deselect. And then I move and sew, it puts those together. And then I do that again. Move and sew. And then I do that again. Move and sew. So it puts them all together. It makes it much easier. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now all those pieces are together. So now I can grab all this and then go to unfold. Then go to layout and same settings. Sweet. So this one's stacked really nice because there was no bevels on it. And then this piece here, I don't really even need to lay out the UVs because they're already there, but I'm going to do it anyway because I get a little bit more resolution. If you look at the before and after, the squares are a little bit tinier, which means that they're going to be a little bit better resolution. All right, that works. So now I'll grab this again. I'll do a layout. And that should have worked. Yep, cool. All right, so now I'm going to export each one of these out. So before we were exporting all of our stuff as OBJs, and OBJs are fine to export. It used to be the translator for all the programs. So if I'm going from Maya to Blender to Cinema to whatever, an OBJ will typically go wherever. Okay, so if you're ever in doubt, you can OBJ. Oops, I didn't make a project. Let's make a project real quick. Project window, new, Sarcona Gaming. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now, though, because we're going to be going into Unreal, is we're going to be sending this out as an FBX. So I'm going to say low-res cube. Save that as an FBX. I changed this to 2014-2015 at the bottom under FBX format under Advanced. There it is. Okay, they did fix it, but I'm still kind of leery about what it takes, so I'm just going to save it as that. Sweet. So I'm going to do the same thing the next one. Now, you don't need to export out a low, medium, and a high-res cube. For this demo, I'm doing it just so you can see the differences. Because obviously you've gone through the process on our first assignment. We went through and we went from Maya UV layout into Substance back to Maya. For the gears, Maya UV layout, Substance back to Maya. For the Thor hammer, Maya UV layout, Substance back to Maya. You want to make sure that you understand the quality of things because it's a lot of work. If I were to just take this one in here and saw what the end result is and said I'm not happy with that, then I have to basically come back into Maya, relay out the UVs, redo that. All right, so I'm going to go back into Substance now. Make a new object. I'm going to go to my 20 folder, go to my gaming assets, scenes. I'm going to load in the low res, and 2048 should be fine. This is going to be Unreal Engine 4, a logarithmic. Okay, because I know if with this asset I'm going to go in there. So I'm just setting it up right now to do that. And, okay. Sweet. So there is my cube. Perfect. So same process. I'm going to bake the textures. I'm going to load in, well, I'm going to not load in my high res. I'm just going to say use this as my high res. I'll load in the high res in a minute just so you can see it. This process of modeling UV substance and then back to Maya or Unreal or wherever we're going, you need to work on making that quicker, okay? Make sure you can push yourself so that within just a few minutes, you can go through that process of laying out the UVs and getting it into substance and then getting some texture on it. All right, so oops. My ID map was set to something else. Let's go to material color. I'm just going to bake the ID one, so I can say none, click ID, change my settings, and then bake. There we go. All right, so there's all my stuff. And I'm going to drop in this case, it's going to be wood, so I'm going to find the wood material down here and just drop it on there. Okay, so there's what my box would look like if I were to bring that into Unreal. Obviously, that looks pretty horrible. No one's going to want to play that game. So that's an epic fail on my part, right? So I'm going to discard. I'm going to make a new one. Okay, so I'm going to load in my low res again just so we can start off fresh. Still Unreal. Everything else is fine. Rebake it. And this time I'm going to load in my medium res. Oops, I don't know why I clicked that. I'm going to load in the medium res as my high definition mesh. And again, I'm going to show you what the medium is going to look like and then what the high is going to look like. Okay, let's drop the walnut on here. All right, doesn't look terribly too different, right? We don't have a whole lot of differences from one to the other. We do have a normal map that I thought was going to come in a little bit nicer, but apparently not. All right, let me make sure I click the right one. Yep, medium res cube. Okay, so it just didn't come in very nice. All right, that's no big deal. So now let me go to load in my new one. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my medium res cube right there. Hit OK. And I'm going to bake my texture, and then I'm going to load in my high res cube as this piece of geometry. Let me make my, I don't know why my ID map didn't bake again. Still on that, that's why. There we go. All right, so now there is my high res or medium res on the high res.
This is yours.
Thank you. All right, so that definitely looks better than the other one did, okay? So that's something that you have to keep in mind, because as you go through the modeling process, you have to know how far am I going to push my model to realism, okay? And ideally, if there's big movement like this and this, I would definitely put that inside my model. If there's little movement like a scratch or a cut or whatever, that would all be texture based, okay? So if I wanted there to be like a broken piece of wood here, I would put a broken piece of wood right there inside of Substance versus putting it inside of Maya. Now I may also have some changes to the model that I want, right? So my block may look like this, but I may want it to also be maybe like that, right? So maybe it's kind of like wobbly. So that's something I would definitely want to model inside Maya. That's not something I could go into Substance and put in there. Now, if I do a change like this, I have to relay out the UVs for it. So that's stuff that you, again, have to make sure that you know before you start laying this stuff out. Because otherwise, you just got to redo some of the work. All right. So, sweet. So now let's look at some of the controls for this thing. So this is wood fibers. And I'm going to just turn off some of these things and look at them basically one at a time. Okay. So I think that's one more. So there's our base. So this is how Substance creates all the materials. Is it starts off with a base color, and then it just adds these different effects on top of it to create that end result. So the first one is base, which again is just the flat color. If I go into this and I click the color, I can make this whatever color I want that wood to be, and then all those effects will stack on top of it. Okay? So I'm going to leave it back to where it was. That. The next one is noise color. And what you're going to see here is there's actually some sort of grain that's happening on top of this. Okay. Now this one is done sort of the same way. It starts off with a color, but then the rest of this is coming from here. It's coming from this this mask, which is doing a fill of a noise pattern. Now what's cool is that we can change what that noise looks like. So if we're not happy with it just being kind of this grainy look, we can go in here and change it to something like this, or change it to something like that. Okay, so if we had like Mario, we're trying to build the Mario world, we can create very quickly that kind of pattern in there. We can create our own pattern. Okay, or we can change what that looks like. We can also change the nope, not in this one. This one, let's just like that. Okay. We can also change the colors here. So if we go to this, you'll see there's no little paint bucket. This one has a paint bucket, which means it's a fill layer, which means that when I click on this, I can change the color right here. This one is not that. This one is a regular layer that has been filled with that color, and that fill is coming from here. Oops, here. It's affecting this. Okay. Now also on here, this says pass through. There we go. If I change this to normal, you'll see that that pretty much goes away. So with this as pass through, we get this kind of effect. Again, it's not important to know the specifics of how to build this from scratch, but just know that there's other stuff going on here that are causing that wood to look like that wood. Okay. So I'm going to go to the wood fibers because this is the important one I wanted to show here. So this one is a overlay, and that's what's causing these wood fibers to look like that. Now if I click on the wood fibers, you'll see down here it says base color wood fibers, height wood fibers, and then here is how it's actually being projected on there. Now if you look at the wood here, and I'm trying to build an actual like asset for this that looks realistic, the wood fibers would not all go the same exact direction on this wood. So this going across here, that's what that would do. This going across this way, that's not what that would do. The wood should be rotated going the other direction for those specific pieces. Okay, so that's coming from wood fibers. Now there's also a grunge pass which goes on top of it. There's also a sharpen. There's also these extra wood fibers on top, and that's what makes this look the way it does. Now if I want to change how this thing is being laid out, that's where I need to come in and start playing with some of the stuff we've already kind of looked at. So I'm going to add a black mask to this. Oops, not to that, to this. There we go. Oop, actually, let me add a white mask to that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to add a white mask to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the white mask. I'm going to go to that fill button, and I'm going to grab the faces and make it black. Okay, so basically I'm going to say I don't want this one to be colored with that. I don't want this one to be colored with that. Okay, this one's good here. That one's not. That one's not. And the reason it does that is just because of how it's getting laid out on the UVs and how it's getting projected back onto this box. Okay, now we could also get into this area here, right there, and also look at the wood grain here. You can see that too good? Probably not. I can't really brighten that, can I? No. I'm going to add a new layer right here. Oops. Now that projector, I think the bulb might be dying. Alright, just trust me that it's there. Or I'll go to my levels, maybe I can crank this up. Oops. Thickness, length, sharpen, grunge pass. Let's take the grunge pass off. There we go. Still horrible. Holy cow. You can kind of see it there. Okay, so the wood grain here is going up and down. If it was going left and right, I could go in there and start doing the same exact thing to this one, or any of the other ones. Okay, but those areas are not as bad because typically our character is not going to get that close to any of these items. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two materials here. One of them is going to be the wood going one way, and then one is going to be the wood going the other way. So I'm going to take this and duplicate it. So I just right click and duplicate it. I'm going to go to my mask. I'm going to right click and I'm going to invert the mask. You'll see that I get the exact same results. So the wood is going this way here. It shouldn't be going that way. It should be going the other way. So I can come down into the wood fibers, and if I just go to UV rotation and I double click, and I can set this to 90. And what should happen, oops, that's the wrong wood fibers. I have the other one here. Double click. Come on. That should work. That's that. All right, there, yes. Oh, there it is. This one was on the mask itself, so I actually had to go into this wood mask and then go down to the UV rotation here. So now you can see that those wood grains are going the other way. Sweet. Okay, so now this looks more appropriate in what it should look like. Now, if we want to get even more technical, typically this would be like a bar across, a bar here, and then a shorter bar in the middle. Looking at reference for a wooden crate. There you go. So you can see how, there we go. It's a short bar going across, a short bar here. Sometimes they have that. They have other planks going this way. Okay. So again, that could be part of the model that we built. All right. So there's that, there's that. All right. So let's pretend that this is good. I did some extra stuff on here. So now I'm going to export my textures out. So Unreal Engine 4 packed, good. When I come down here, you'll see that the base color is going to be, in this area, the occlusion, normal, and emissive. Because I don't have an emissive, it will not export an emissive. It'll just leave it like that. As long as I keep my Substance Painter file, I can export this as 2K. If I'm not going to keep it, then I would export it at 4K, and then I could resize things later. 2K is plenty big for what we're doing. Where am I going to save this? Okay, so let's get our... We have our folder set up, so I'm going to go here to here, there, gaming assets, source images. Okay, so I'm going to select this folder and then export it to that. Yep. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go into Unreal and I'm going to launch the engine. So with this, just like I mentioned before, pick one of these that you want to work with, that you like the workflow of it, that you like how the person is moving around. If you go with a third person, your objects are typically going to be further away from the camera because your character is further away from you. If you go with first person, items are typically closer because your camera is like right on top of those objects. You can't change it later easily anyway. All right, so I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to make a third person because I like those better. And I'm going to put this inside of that same folder. So where I have my gaming assets, I'm going to select that folder. I'm not going to start with any starter content. Maximum quality is fine. And for now, desktop console. And I will call this Sarcona Gaming Assets Unreal. UE, there we go. Sarcona Game Assets UE. There's a size limit. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to import my FBX, I need to import my textures, and then connect all of these things together. If I look inside the folder that I just created, it should automatically have that stuff there. Gaming Assets, Sarcona, oops, Content. All right, so here in the Content folder is all the stuff that it already organized for you. So just like Maya creates starting folders, Unreal creates starting folders too. So in my geometry folder, this is typically where I will throw my default stuff. So I'm going to make a folder in here, and I'm going to entitle it New Folder, Crate. And this is how I organize mine, basically by item, so crate. And then I'm going to copy my stuff inside there. So I'm going to go to my gaming assets, I'm going to go to my scenes, and I will copy my medium res crate into crate, or into, yeah, crate, there we go. And then I will copy my source images, copy all three of these into crate as well. Okay. Now once I've done that, you'll see that Unreal at the bottom says 4 changes have made to your folders. Do you want to import these things? And I will say, yes, I do want to import those things. And there's basically some information you can pay attention to if you want to. I'm just going to say import all and then close. Okay. So once that's done, under my content, under my geometry, under my mesh crate, I will have my cube. I will have 3 textures, and I will have a Lambert 1. So Unreal will automatically read in what material was on my original object, and it'll apply it into that, okay? So I don't want to use this, so I'm just going to right-click and make a new one, and I will call this crate material. So just crate underscore M. And then I'm going to double click it, and that brings open this window. Now this is similar to like the hypershade that's inside Maya. I'm going to drag these 3 items into here, and I'll make this bigger so you can see it. Okay, so just set that there. I'll set this here. I'll set this here. Okay. So this one is called base color. So that's going to be connected to base color. Okay. And we go with the white. The white out means the entire thing is going to be pumped into that. This one is occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So what it does is it bunches those 3 items into that one group. So if I go to the red, that's occlusion. If I go to the green, that's roughness. If I go to the blue, that's metallic. You know how in Maya we're clicking on use alpha, or alpha is luminance? Okay, those 3 things, metallic, roughness, and ambient occlusion, are black and white basically. They're just one value or another value. So that's why it's able to store each one of these into this channel, because it just saves us time and each one is a black and white channel. Where here, color, in order to see the color correctly, we need red, green, and blue. So that's why it puts all those together. And then here's a normal map. Again, in order to get color here, we need to see the entire thing. I drop this onto normal. All right, so now that should be it. So if I hit save, close this, close it, there we go. And then I double click my mesh. I can go over here and pick from my list crate. And then I can spin around and see, what does my crate look like. Cool, awesome, save. All right, so then I can drop this into my scene. Now notice that the pivot for this is way off. If I go back to my Maya, nope, that's not Maya, this is. Here's my original Maya file. Look at where the grid plane is. Okay, do you see how the grid plane is like off to the left? By default, Unreal brings it in and says, okay, this is your item. Wherever the center of your world was, way over here, that's going to be the pivot for it. So obviously when we model stuff, we want to make sure that we are right there on top of it. Okay, right there in the center of the world, and even right here, So I'm going to move my pivot down to the bottom of this, and then snap this to the grid. Right there. Oops. Let me go to the front view so I can see it. We're almost there. There we go. Cool. All right. So right there. Now this is also what's cool about this is I export this out. I can save it inside the same folder, but I'm actually going to put it inside of my UE content geometry meshes crate and just rename it or overwrite the same exact item. So now when I come back to Unreal, yes, I would like to import, boom, it changes it and updates the pivot for it, okay? So don't think it's the end of the world, just fix it, and then it comes back in perfectly. And now it snaps right to the ground. And that's the whole idea with having the pivot in the right spot, is we want it to be able to snap to certain things. Otherwise, it makes our life a lot harder to do, okay? So now we have a crate, and if you look at the scale of it, that looks like an appropriately sized crate. Again, making sure that we looked at the dimensions ahead of time, built it to the specs we wanted, now it comes in at an appropriate size. So now I hit play, and there's my crate. Okay, I could make it taller or scale it up, whatever, but that's good. So that's one item that I built. Now I'm going to build another item, and this is what I'm going to build here are stairs. Now this is important because these stairs are at a certain angle and a certain height. If they're too big, he can't climb them. Okay, so if the stairs are like this tall, he can't climb the stairs. He has to jump up each step. If they're too small, obviously I have to have a lot of them in order to make it up anywhere. All right. So I'm going to take this stuff here, which is all part of my crate. I'm going to throw it onto a new layer called crate, and then hide it. And this is typically how I work with my stuff, is I will just make it on a layer and just hide it as I'm building it. Okay, you can build all your stuff right in the same scene. Gaming. There we go. Just make sure you put on a layer and hide it, because we want to make sure we build it right at the origin. Don't move it away from the origin, keep it right there. So now I'm going to build some stairs. So I'm going to go here. Oops, let me turn my texturing off. I'm going to go back to regular mode. There we go. Okay. So this is an area where typically people build things, I guess, weirder than I would build things. So you may look at this and say, that's exactly how I'd build a set of stairs. Well, I'm telling you, you're wrong. Okay, so here's a bunch of stairs. So I'm going to grab all of these like this. I'm going to extrude them. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to shift click that one off, extrude again, pull it up. Shift click that one off, extrude, pull again. Okay, so that's how you could build a set of stairs. But I want you to see something when I'm done with this. Okay, so basically I had to wait until the very end of my stairs being built to even figure out what the stairs are going to look like, how tall they're going to be, and all that stuff. Okay, so that's kind of a really inefficient way to do it. Also, because of how I did it, my stairs are not uniform. This one is slightly higher than this one or that one. I could go through and side view it and line up each one of these to one of these grid lines. That's a possibility. If it's too tall, I could always scale it down like that. That is a possibility. But there is an easier way. Okay, this is the easier way. I start off with a plane. I rotate it like so. Looking at the size of things, right? So we always want to look at scale. So we would look at the stair height. So the general rule is 7-11. 7-inch rise, 11-inch run. Okay, so 7 inches up, 11 inches in. So if we again convert that to 7 inches to centimeters, that would give us 21 or 17. All right, so I'm going to go to create measure tool. All right, so that's 10. I'm going to scoot this over, what did it say? 17. That's pretty close. Okay, so this is the height of it. So I need to bring this up higher, like so, like that. All right, So 17 is about there. Cool. And then the depth is 11, so we'll go 11 here. And then that'll be 27.94. Sweet. Okay. So this height by this length is how big one step should be. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this up until one of my blocks is exactly that big. All right. So I'm looking at this block right here. So this is, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be pretty close. So this block right here is perfectly that width. The height needs to come down, so I'm going to scale the height to about there. Okay? And then just because I want to, I'm going to go and round these numbers off so that they are nicer numbers. All right, 146 by 277. Okay. Oops, let me move this down actually, and then scale this back up. So 177. All right. So now if we look at this one step right here, that's as high up as it should be and as deep as it should be. Okay? So if I then look at this and say, okay, well, this, oopsie, this. If I make a mistake, somebody tell me, because obviously I'm making mistakes here. There we go. Nope. This is not a handicap accessible one. I'm just not doing a good job. And let's get rid of that row. There we go. So now what I've done is I've created the profile for those steps without having to model and extrude a whole bunch of stuff. Okay? And this is 100% accurate compared to what the other one was. So now I can just extrude it, and now I have as wide of a step as I need that step to be. Okay? The other thing I can do, what was that?
There's a panel sticking out the side.
Here? Nope, that's just my grid.
Oh.
The other thing I can do is if I delete this stuff here, and I create a NURB circle, let's just say that's good enough, maybe a bit bigger, yeah, like that. I'm going to go to the NURB circle. I'm going to take the sweep to, let's say, 90. Yep, that's cool. Yep, that's good. All right, I'm going to put this, the pivot for this, I'm going to hit D and C and just middle click and drag along here. That's snap to curve. I'm going to hold V and snap this to the bottom there. And I'm going to grab these two items and then go to Edit Mesh Extrude. Where are you at? You're not under here, are you? You are. There it is. I'm going to say selected curve, extrude. Why didn't that work? Let's try that again. I may have to grab the faces and then grab that. That's probably what I have to do. And then extrude. Sweet. All right, so that worked. I just have to make more divisions. And let me hit undo. Okay, so my curve is actually backwards, so I'm going to go to curves and say reverse. Oh, I need a search button. There we go. All right, let's try that again. Extrude. There we go. Divisions. Sweet. Okay. I don't know why it's coming off so wonky right there. Maybe because it wants to do it from the center. But either way, it's not a huge deal because I could always move the curve, move the faces. Let's go center pivot this. No, maybe not. Let's just put it right here. It's pretty close to the center. No, it wants to be right there. Okay. So I'll put it right there where, pretty close to where it was. All right, that's good. Okay. So again, grab the faces, grab that, do extrude, divisions. works. And now I have this kind of shape right here. Now I could still fix this curve. Yeah, I don't know why it's so like wonky right there. But regardless, I could just take this and just delete that off. And then I would have this area. And then to fill this back in, because we want everything to be filled in, I just grab the edge, I say fill hole. There we go. And then I can grab this and say quadrangulate faces. Nope. If I triangulate it, it'll put stuff there, but I don't want that. I guess I'll just use the regular multi-cut. So I can just click here, click there, hit Y, click here, click there. You want your stuff to have nice polygon divisions because it'll just make sure that it looks nice across the platform of all of your different programs you go into. If you don't have nice quads, your stuff will be very difficult to work with. There we go. Then I go this way. And you can see how I can skip over it. So I'm just using the multi-cut and clicking on one edge, or one point, then the next point. If I make a mistake, I hit backspace. There we go. Cool. Alright, so there's my stairs. If they turn out black, they're inside out. So then I go to mesh display, I say reverse. That may not sound like a huge deal, but when you're in Unreal, it'll actually intersect the opposite direction. It'll like intersect the inside, not the outside. Okay, so you can do a lot with this kind of setup here. All right, so there's my stairs. I'm going to put their pivot in a specific spot. I'm going to center pivot it first, and then hold down DV. Okay, so I'm moving the pivot to the bottom, and then DV again, move the pivot to the back. And then I'm going to snap it right to the center here. So if I hold down X, middle click and drag right there, now it's perfectly centered. Okay, delete history. I can delete those measuring tools. I don't need those anymore. Now I want to look at my, I have the basic model. I want to look at how detailed I want to get. So I could add bevels to this. I could add like a, sometimes these stairs will have like a bullnose type thing that kind of rounds off the corner. You could do something like that. Whatever. So your second item will be stairs. I think I'll just add bevels to this. Oops. I'm going to go here to there. That's pretty good. Okay. So now how I lay these UVs out is very, very similar to the first one, very similar to everything we've done before. Like I've mentioned in the past, I like to start off with this automatic and see what the automatic gives me. Sometimes it's going to be perfect, like exactly what you want. So what are the three things we look for, or two things we look for?
Stretching.
Right, stretching, so everything should be square, and? What's that? Right, these ones are a bit rectangular, but we want them to be perfectly square, and then what's the other thing? All the same size, right? Okay, so these are rectangle, so why are they rectangle? I did automatic. Shouldn't automatic have made them all perfectly square? So I've messed something up. What have I messed up? I did not freeze transform. Very good. Just to show, if I go to my channel box, even though these numbers are close, 177, 277, 276, it doesn't matter. I have to freeze transform. And then I can go to my automatic. And then I will get something that represents that shape better. Okay? Now, just like before, we want all of our pieces to be as together as we can make them. Okay? If we can't make them all together, that's no big deal. But we want them to be as together as we can. So this one is pretty simple. If I just marquee straight across here, it'll select all of those divisions, and then I can move and sew them. And so now all those pieces are together just like that. Okay, then I'll grab these, I'll unfold, that should be no big difference, and then I'll lay out. It'll shrink this, it may shrink these, we'll see. we want to make sure that whatever we do here, that we are optimizing, just like I said, optimizing all of our UVs. So we have a huge amount of space here. So if I am having more items inside this specific item, like let's say I have 4 different stairways, I may put all 4 stairways inside this one UV area. In this case, I'm not. So I'm going to split this down the middle. That's closer to the middle. So I'm going to say cut. And then I'm going to lay it out again. And what this should do is make these squares smaller because it's laying out the texture in a different way, making that bigger. So this is a better layout than we just had because the squares are smaller. There we go. Okay, sweet. So now I will delete history. I'll save my file. I will export this as geometry, yes. I'm going to put this inside here as stairs. What am I building? Save. Export, yes. Okay. I'm going to, oops, not Unreal. I'm going to go to Substance now. I'll save this inside of my gaming assets, inside my scenes. Okay, now I'm making a new one, and this one is going to be my stairs. I'm actually going to save this in 2 spots. I'm going to also export this to my scenes folder. I don't want my substance files being put inside my game, because that'll just bog things down. So I have my stairs FBX, and then my other one. Sweet. Alright, so there's my stairs. Same process, bake texture. This time I'm using the low as the high. I'm going to go to my ID, make sure this is set to material color, hit bake. Alright, cool. So there's all my stuff. And then I'll put something on here. There's a marble, I think, inside here. Marble. Fancy. Alright, so there's my marble. Now, if you want to add extra details on top of this, you can add a fill layer. Give it a color. So let's say in this case I'm making this, it's red. Perfect. Then you can go down to smart masks and you can use one of these smart masks. And what it'll do is it uses the baked items here to create a mask of where that texture is actually laid out. So now we have this red that's laid out on here. Looks kind of silly, but that's fine. I can go into this color, maybe make it a different color. There we go, that's much better. Okay. And just like the Thor hammer, you can still paint stuff on this and add textures, whatever. The process here should be just try to move as quickly through modeling, UV, texture into Unreal. Try to move as quickly as you can through there. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a challenge where you have to do that in a class with one item. All right, so I'm going to save this as stairs. I'm going to go and export my textures out. This is going to be annoying, and I'll show you how to correct that. So every time you go to export, it takes you to this Documents a Logarithmic Export folder. So I'm going to go to my Sarcona folder, 2520, Gaming Assets, here, Content, Geometry. Okay, so I constantly want to go to this Geometry folder, but I don't want to have to keep doing that every single time I export something. So if I right-click on it, oops, not right-click, if I drag this into here, it pins it to the quick access. So now I can just click there to get to this folder. So it makes your life a little bit easier. All right, so now it's going to go to stairs. It's going to export to all this stuff. Export, gorgeous. Back to Unreal. It says, do you want to, yes, I know. Yes, import all that stuff. Yes, perfect. I go back to the I go back to the geometry folder. I go back to the stairs folder. Here's Lambert 1 again. This is why we always make a new one, because every time it imports Lambert 1, it'll like screw up the original Lambert 1. Okay, so instead of recreating a new material every time, or having to fix it every time, we just make a new material. So now this will be stairs M. You can't have the same name, so you have to give it something else. All right, so stairs M. Drag these materials in here. Okay, there, and there. All right, so same setup, right? So this white one is going to go where? Right there? Yep. Base color. All right, so that's going to base color. This one is occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So which one am I going to click on? Just red, green, or blue. So red first. Okay. The name of this file is occlusion, roughness, metallic. Occlusion, roughness, metallic, RGB. So red, green, blue, RGB, red, green, blue. So this is occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So every time the red is going to be going to occlusion, the green is going to be going to roughness, and the blue is going to be going to metallic. Okay, they labeled it exactly the names in the order that they would be connected here. And then this is my normal map, so that's going to go to normal map. So then we save, we close, we double click the stairs, and then we pick from here stairs. There they are. Sweet. Okay, then we can drop our stairs into the mix. And you see, look at that. They look pretty much like their stairs. So there's their stairs that work. Now let's watch our stairs. Oh, they don't work. So their stairs work, but mine don't. I can stand on top of my stairs like it's floating. So inside Unreal, it automatically comes in with a collision object around it. We have to change that collision object so it doesn't do something stupid like that. So if we double click the stairs, here's that item. If we go to collision, we can do simple collision, which looks like this. And if we change this to complex collision, it looks like that. Okay, so we want this to be a complex collision, so we're going to scroll down to right here and say double side collision. Use complex collision as simple. There we go. Sweet. Now when we hit play, oh, you jerk. I can walk down the stairs. Yeah, I think my guy might be set to, yeah, they might be set to high. Let's just see. Where's my move tool? Who took my move tool? There it is. Nope, still locking us out. They shouldn't be. If I set my stairs next to their stairs, I'd say they're pretty darn close to what theirs are. No. Whoops. Also be aware that the manipulators, or the duplicating is alt and then dragging, so very easily you can make copies. Scoot that up. Yeah, look at that. See? That's pretty close to theirs.
You walked up their stairs?
Yeah, I walked up their stairs. Alright, let's make sure we got this right. So, collision, simple, complex, yes.
The question, do they have, like, their collision on their stairs, instead of being stairs, it's just a ramp, but you can't really tell because it's placed in a way that looks like stairs.
Nope, that should work.
Can you go in and manually edit the collisions?
No, you can't grab them, you can bring in a different shape. Like here I can add a different box collision type thing. Let me just check and see what theirs are. If anything, I could always, I mean, just to test it out, just scale this down just a hair like that. Yep. I don't know why I didn't like it the first time. It obviously was the same. Let's hit play again and see.
So steep.
Well, just something about them. Alright, well, I'll have to play with that. That's probably just mine. There we go. Alright, it didn't change it too much anyway, so we're still good. Alright. So back here, save this, yes. Bring up my layers, new layer, stairs. Hide that, good. Okay. So now I'm going to make another new item. And this one I'm going to go with a cylinder. And this is going to be a street light. So again, we go to Google and we type in street light height. 25 feet. So now we're switching to feet instead of inches. 762 centimeters. Holy cow. That's a lot. Okay. Now also, because we switched to a different object, always check that to see. Because if you look at the height of this cylinder right now, it is not 1 centimeter tall. It's 2 centimeters tall. Okay? Because if you look at the box here and the box there, it's 2 centimeters. This is set to 1. Now it's getting 2 from here. So if I set that back to 1, then 762, right? Yeah. Okay. So now that's actually 762 centimeters. And then I'll make that thicker. I'm sure I can find the width also. Radius, thank you. That might be a good one. The last one had a schematic, so we can always look at that. Yeah. Let's go back to this. Back to this.
Just like a basic modern one.
Yeah. So that is 350. I'm assuming centimeters, because that says 1,000. All right. So 350 seems huge, doesn't it? Yeah, that's got to be huge. Because if that's 1,000, 350. Yeah. All right. We're gonna eyeball that one. So that looks pretty good. Other thing you can do is literally go out and measure it. 18 centimeters looks good. Okay. So that's good like that. As always, work low res, right? So 8 divisions is good here. I'm going to switch back to my regular mode so I don't see all those checkerboards. I'm going to insert an edge loop right there. I'm going to grab these 2 faces and extrude it. Oops. And then move it straight out. And then just start to kind of deform this a little bit. So like that. Like that. Now anytime we have these large pieces, I know already that my UVs for this are going to be pretty big. Like that pole is going to be extremely long. So I may have to add some extra divisions in there just to help chop it up some. So what I'm doing here is just kind of giving shape to that light. Alright, and then if I hit 3, it looks disgusting, but we'll add some division so it doesn't look so disgusting. Oops. So I'll add a division here, I'll add a division there, hit 3, that's better. Now this is a simple object, so you don't have to go into a whole lot of detail on this. I just want you to see that process. So I'm just kind of moving some of these points around. Alright, so there's my light. I can start deleting faces that I don't need, okay? So I'm never going to see the bottom of this, so delete those faces. You may never see the top of these faces. You could delete those too. I would keep those in just because typically if you're on top of a building, you want to make sure you see that. Insert edge loop, drop that there, scale this in. All right, so there's my light. Gorgeous. All right, so now let's lay out the UVs for it. So what's my first step in laying out the UVs? What was that? Doing this. Freezing my transforms. That's the first one. There we go. So now I can do my automatic. And this is why we're going to need some extra divisions in here, because this pole is so long that we need those divisions so that we can cut it so that these pieces fit better inside here. I'm also going to do a little bit more modeling to this, I think. I just want to scale that in and then push that up. There we go. Okay. So let's do automatic again. There we go. Let me add another division. Come on. So I'll add actually 2 divisions right here and right there. So then I'm going to grab, I'm going to grab the divisions right there down the center and cut them. And now I can do my unfold. And then I can do my layout. As long as you have those options set initially, you don't have to worry about constantly going back in there and resetting them over and over and over again. If there's any little pieces, I want to fix those. If there's anything kind of weird, I want to fix that. For a shape like this, I always want to check the stretch map and see if that's going to change anything. So if I go to UV distortion, it'll highlight on here where I'm getting any distortion. Okay, so if you see any bright colors on here, there's a lot of distortion going on. Just to make it obvious in this case, see the colors, there's a distortion. So I want to fix that. It's pretty good. I don't need to fix it. I do have a shape down here. It's a little bit of red right there, but that's fine. The shape down here that maybe I want to try to place in. There we go. All right, let's try this again. So grab these, unfold, layout. Okay, now we got a little bit more red there, so I probably didn't want to do that. Oop, and even some blue. All right, let's undo that. All right, we'll leave that little shape alone. Unfold. Layout. All right, and you know what? I think I'm going to add something else to this too. I'm afraid that this might fall over in a storm, so I'm going to go to my edge loop here like this. I'm going to go to these faces. I'm going to extrude it, push it out. There we go. So I want to make sure I have a nice steady base of cement on the bottom so it doesn't blow over. All right. Now this is why we have to be able to work quick, because I just made a change to my model, and because I made a change, my UVs have to be redone. So automatic again. Deselect these. Cut the UVs. Unfold. Layout. And then again, when it's done, I'm going to check my stretch maps. Make sure there's no stretching. Make sure that everything is square. Make sure everything is laid out correctly. Good. I may also want to add in a bevel. And this is what's cool about the new setup that Maya has with the UVs. You know, you guys can complain all you want about how horrible UVs are, but they're 10 times better than they were. I'm going to bevel this. 0.2. Let's go. Oops. 2 segments. Okay, back to unfold. Back to layout. There we go. Again, moving quickly with all of these things just so we can get that model into Unreal. Sweet. All right. So there's our lamppost. So now I export this out. So I should probably save. Oops. Make sure my pivot's in the right spot, because right now it's right there. Holding X and then snapping it to the grid. I may need to switch to the front view just so I can see it, because it's so high up. Sweet. Okay. So now let's go to export this, and I'm going to put it in 2 spots. One of them is going to be in my gaming asset scenes. Late host. export. And then the other one will be inside of Unreal, so I will go to lighting and shading. My geometry button, make a new folder. Lamp. Post. Okay. All right. So, go here, save this, fine, good, new. All right, so here's my light post. Now, this is where we're starting to kick into new things, right? So the first one, the crate, was pretty similar to what we've already done. Modeled it, UV laid out, brought it in, whatever. The stairs, very similar, different modeling process. This one, we're going to learn some new fun stuff. I have 3 materials I need to put on here. Here, and there. Those 3 items are separate things. We know already how we can do that by grabbing this and then using this to select things, right? That's no big deal. We can also use the ID map to bring stuff back and forth. So what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm going to grab all of these. Okay, so I grabbed all those faces there, and I'm going to assign a surface shader to this. Let me delete my history and everything. That way it shows up right there. Good. I'm done with UVs too, so I can just go back to classic. I'm going to grab all of this, assign a surface shader, and make this green, and then grab all of that, surface shader, and blue. Okay, so there's 3 different surface shaders. Now the one that I bring into Unreal, I don't want to have all these surface shaders because Unreal will bring in all 3 surface shaders plus Lambert 1. So the one I bring into Substance can have it, but the one I bring into Unreal will not have it. So I'm going to put this back into my scenes folder. Okay. So now I'm going to go back into here, discard, select, post. Okay. I'm going to bake my textures just like before. My ID one, I'm going to go to material color and then say bake. And what should happen, if this works correctly, is it should read those red, green, and blue, or whatever colors I picked, and it should have my ID map having these 3 colors in there. It did not pick the correct one. Let's try that again. Let's go to bake. Let's say none. Let's say ID. What? It just worked. U shift. Nope, it's just being stupid now. Alright, well. Oh, wait. Yeah, that should be fine. It still should work. That. Oh. Oops. I forgot to click that button. That's why. Let's go back to material color. Yes. Go back to bake. So I had to make sure I click that as the low res is the high res. And then, for real, just worked. All right, I'll have to figure that one out, whatever. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, well, whatever. So I'm just going to drop in 3 different materials here. So I'm going to drop in concrete. Smart materials. I guess we can do iron old first. We'll do that one. And then that one will be a black mask. And then that will be here with white. So now I'm using the faces, so I can deselect all these faces here. So now that one doesn't have it. And then down here too. If the ID map was playing nicely, I could have just clicked and then that would have worked. Alright, so there's my iron old. And then leather, machinery, marble, plastic. Alright, we'll do dirty plastic for the cap up here. We'll again use a black mask. And then I will paint with white. There and right there. Sweet. And then we'll use bronze statue for that bottom one. I'm going to change the colors of that, obviously, because that bronze coloring doesn't really match what I want. Oops. There we go. Alright, so there's my lamppost in all its glory. Sweet. Alright, so I'm going to export it out. Same spot. That's why we have the geometry button, so we can get right to it. To lamppost, yes. And export. So now when we come into Unreal, it would say import, and it'll bring in all the stuff. Yes, import all. That's just an annoying thing that's going to happen every time, is it's going to say all of this stuff. Here's my lamppost. Make a new material. Drag these in here. Okay, so base color, base color. Normal map, normal map. Occlusion, roughness, and metallic. Then we open up the lamppost. And then we assign that lamppost material to it. And there it is. Save it. Close it. Okay. Now, this is, we're going to learn something new here too. That is huge. Yeah, that concrete could have been a little bit smaller. Say it's that big. Alright, so if I hit play here, it's a lamppost, but it's not really doing anything. Okay, so I want it to actually like light up. So I'm going to make the lamppost light up. And this is where we can start going beyond that and start combining things. So let's say that you had one crate, but you actually wanted like a bundle of crates that you could just drop in wherever you wanted. Okay, so this is the same process. So I'm going to go to right click here and do a blueprint. Okay, ignore the word class, just say blueprint. And I'm going to do an actor. The lamppost in this case is an actor in the scene, so I'm going to call this lamppost underscore BP. And what I do is I just double click, and then I can bring in stuff inside here. So imagine this is like a mini scene. I can drag stuff into this mini scene, and then I can drag that into my world to make other stuff happen. So in this case, I'm going to drag my lamppost in here. So there's the lamppost. Come on, there we go. And then I want a light, so I'm going to go over here to add component, and I'm going to add a light. Now, if you can't find it just by searching, you can type it in. So you can go light, and it'll bring up all the lights. So I want to add a spotlight. And then very similar to Maya stuff. Oops. Drag it in. There we go. Move it here, rotate it. Move it there, pull it down a bit. And you can see how it's already lighting it up. Okay, now the way that the light works is it's shining basically straight down. So it's not actually illuminating up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a point light. And I'll put that just above it, and I'll take the intensity down to, something. Okay. So what should be happening now is the spotlight is going to illuminate the ground below the lamppost, and the point light is just illuminating that area. So I say compile, I say save, I close this. I'm going to drag in my lamppost BP. I'll set that there. And then I hit play. So now that one's lit up, my other one is not lit up. And as I get over here, this is actually lighting up that scene. Okay? Now it's difficult to see because of the rest of the light inside the scene. If I move it over here, we might be able to see it a little bit better. Probably not too much. If I double click the lamppost BP, go to the viewport. I shouldn't have to. It should automatically update this for my playback stuff. When I bake it, that's basically lighting up or locking in the lights for the shadows for the other objects that are static. So like this box here that may not move, that's where I would bake the lighting. For this object, it knows it moves, so it wouldn't bake the lighting. Alright, so now if we go over here, we have a light. It's plenty bright, and now my guy is actually inside that area. Sweet. Now I can also go over here. This is your outliner for Cinema. What software are we in? Unreal. If I go over here and I go to my lighting, I can change all of these. So there is skylight. Inside here is the intensity, so I could knock that down if I needed to. I could also take the light source, and somewhere in here is intensity. I can knock that down. There we go. So now we have this really moody scene of a guy just standing over here under this lamppost. I can. That's a perfect idea. Spotlight, color. There we go. Orange colored. Alright, sweet. Compile, save. I'll go to my crate also, and I'll make a crate blueprint. There we go. And I'll do the same exact thing. I'll drop my crate into here. And then I can, oops, come on. Duplicate this, Control W, because why would it be anything different, right? And drop it on top. Their rotators are sometimes kind of weird. Now, if you look at this, it's intersecting it. Unreal has a snap, so you see how it's snapping there and there. So up here are all the snaps. So this is the scaling, this is rotate, and this is move. So if I change this to 5, that might be enough just to get it on top of it. Yep, that's good. And so now I can take these two items, Control W, grab the two items, scoot them over. There we go. Okay, and then I can compile this, I can save it, and then I can drop my cube BP right into the scene. It's a sunny day and he's just in this moody area. Now you'll also notice too, he can't get close to this because he still has, like every object has that collision box around it, okay? So if I go to my lamppost, I go to my original lamppost, I look at the collisions for this, simple and complex, you can see the simple one is right there. So if I come down here to collisions, I passed it up. Maybe. Collisions, yes. Oh, there it is. Use simple as complex. I'm going to try that one. I thought it was the other way around. Oh, that was right, yeah, okay. Use complex as simple. Play. Yeah, now I can get right up against it. Sweet. There's a sun right there, too. Yeah. Okay. So these are your first 3 shapes I want you to build. So stick with these ones for your first 3. Crate, stairs, and a lamppost. I want you to go through the entire process as quickly as you can to model the crates, to model the lamppost, to model the stairs. And so you can get through the entire process. Make sure when you're doing your work, that you're saving your Unreal stuff, and you're saving your Substance stuff, and you're saving your Maya stuff. The next part of this assignment is going to be creating 3 different items that are complex. These are simple items. The next ones are going to be 3 complex ones. So that's where you will need to go out and find gaming assets. Some ideas for different gaming assets you want to create. Obviously, within the time we have allotted for the assignment, this should take 2 weeks at the very most. Okay? So something like this is a more complex one. Something like that is a more complex one. Okay? Something like this we don't have time for. Something like these, perfect. Something like this, good. Okay? That's good too. That's complex. Okay? So find 3 items that you will model complexly. We'll also be getting into ZBrush a little bit here, so I'll be showing you the process of going from Maya into ZBrush, sculpting something, and then bringing that into Unreal as well. And then hopefully I'll figure out why my Substance is not bringing in my colors the way it should bring in my colors. I have something clicked wrong, I'm sure of it. It drives me crazy is what it does. Let me just check. Yeah, no, alright. Alright, so that's that. Alright, any questions on that yet? No? Okay. I'll be around to check